Welcome to our deep dive into reinventing your life. We're going to be exploring this book with a focus on personal growth and how to finally break those negative patterns that might be holding you
Oh,
back.
yeah.
Reinventing Your Life was written by Jeffrey Young and Janet Klosko, two leading psychologists who specialize in cognitive therapy.
Right.
And they introduced this really fascinating concept of life traps.
Yes.
Um, think of them as destructive patterns that are established in your childhood and then continue to impact you as an adult,
Yeah.
often preventing you from reaching your full potential.
It's quite amazing, actually, how much our childhood experiences can shape our lives.
Yeah,
And the book uses these really compelling case studies to illustrate the concept.
yeah.
Like there's Jed, who consistently falls for unavailable women and just can't seem to find lasting love.
Right.
And it all comes back to an emotional deprivation life trap stemming from neglect during his childhood.
So we are going to explore these 11 life traps that are identified in the book. Hopefully you'll be able to recognize some patterns in your own life and understand where they come from.
Right.
Learn how to break free.
Yeah.
So let's start by unpacking these life traps.
Okay.
What exactly are they and how do they affect us?
Life traps are essentially ingrained negative thought patterns
Okay.
that are formed during childhood when certain core emotional needs aren't met.
And Reinventing Your Life really brings these life traps to life through some really compelling case studies.
Yes.
We already met Jed, who keeps falling for those unavailable women because of his emotional deprivation life trap.
Yes.
But there are others, right?
There are, for example, Heather is crippled by anxiety and the fear of the outside world.
Okay.
She's trapped in a vulnerability life trap.
Okay.
And then there's Patrick, who constantly seeks validation and just can't seem to function independently.
Right.
A classic example of the dependence life trap.
It's like these life traps are setting us up to fail, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
They often do.
Do you find yourself drawn to people who are, well, maybe a little selfish or cold?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're always striving to be the best, even if it means sacrificing relaxation and fun.
Mm-hmm.
These could be signs that a life trap is operating in your life.
Absolutely.
What patterns do you see repeating in your relationships and your behaviors?
It might be illuminating to look at those through the lens of these life traps.
So let's dive into these 11 life traps outlined in the book.
Right.
I noticed that they're grouped by the core needs they stem from.
That's right. The first category is basic safety, which includes the abandonment and mistrust and abuse life traps.
Okay,
These are really about that fundamental need to feel safe and secure in the world.
right.
When those needs aren't met in childhood, it can lead to these really deep-seated fears of being abandoned or harmed, which then play out in our adult lives.
It makes sense that feeling safe is fundamental to our well-being.
Absolutely.
What comes next?
The next category is connection to others, with the emotional deprivation and social exclusion life traps. This speaks to that essential human need to feel loved, connected, and accepted.
Right.
When these needs go unmet, we might struggle with intimacy or constantly seek approval,
Okay.
or feel chronically isolated and alone.
So it's not just about physical safety, but also about emotional security and feeling like we belong.
Exactly.
Then we have autonomy, featuring the dependence life trap.
Yes.
This is where individuals haven't fully developed a sense of independence.
Right.
They might struggle to stand on their own 2 feet, constantly needing guidance and reassurance from others.
Mm-hmm.
Those seeking constant validation and reassurance, that was Patrick, right?
Yes.
What other categories of life traps are there?
The next category is self-esteem,
Okay.
and it includes the defectiveness and failure life traps.
Got it.
These life traps are all about those crippling feelings of inadequacy and shame.
Right.
It's that belief that you're not good enough, that you're flawed or broken in some fundamental way.
Yeah.
And that can lead to a fear of failure that holds you back from pursuing your goals.
So it's about our internal sense of worthiness.
Exactly.
What comes after that?
Next, we have self-expression, which includes the subjugation and unrelenting standards, life traps.
Okay.
This category is all about silencing your true self, suppressing your needs and desires in order to please others, or meet those impossibly high standards that you've set for yourself.
It sounds exhausting trying to constantly live up to those impossible standards.
It is.
What's the final category?
The final category is realistic limits,
Okay.
and the only life trap in this category is entitlement.
Got it.
This is where individuals struggle with boundaries and have an inflated sense of self-importance
Okay.
and demand special treatment.
It's pretty incredible, isn't it, how these childhood experiences can shape our adult lives in such profound ways.
Yeah, it is.
We've identified and named these life traps, but how do they actually work?
Yeah.
How do they show up in our day-to-day lives?
The book describes a cycle of coping mechanisms that people tend to use when dealing with their life traps. They call it the surrender, escape, and counterattack cycle.
So tell me more about this cycle. Or
Uh-huh.
how does it work?
Well, think about it this way. These coping mechanisms are our attempts to avoid the pain and discomfort
Okay.
that our life traps trigger. For example, surrender is when you essentially give in to the life trap,
Okay.
behaving in ways that confirm those negative beliefs.
Like Alex, who constantly chooses those critical and demanding partners,
Yeah.
which just ends up reinforcing his feelings of being defective.
Exactly. It's like he's unconsciously seeking out situations that validate those deeply held beliefs.
Then there's escape,
Yes.
which is all about avoiding those situations and feelings that trigger the life trap.
Right.
So someone like Brandon, who's terrified of intimacy and rejection because of his abandonment life trap, might avoid close relationships altogether.
Yeah.
He's escaping the potential pain of abandonment, but in doing so, he's also missing out on the opportunity for genuine connection.
That's right.
And that brings us to counterattack.
Right.
This is where we try to overcompensate for the life trap by acting in the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
Like Max, who masks his deep insecurities about his worth by putting on this arrogant and superior persona.
Yes, it's a defense mechanism,
Yeah.
but it ultimately pushes people away
Right?
and prevents him from forming those close, authentic connections that he truly craves.
So even though these coping mechanisms seem to offer some temporary relief,
Mm-hmm.
they actually reinforce the life traps in the long run.
Right,
It's
yeah.
like we're stuck in this vicious cycle. So
Exactly.
how do we break free?
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
The good news is that Reinventing Your Life offers a roadmap,
Okay.
a step-by-step guide to reclaiming your life from these life traps.
Okay.
The first step is recognizing and naming your life traps,
Mhm.
and the book provides a questionnaire
Right.
that can help you do just that.
So awareness is the first step.
Exactly.
But what comes next?
Yeah.
How do we actually start to dismantle these deeply ingrained patterns?
Well, one of the most powerful tools the book introduces is connecting with your inner child.
Oh,
It's about accessing and comforting that part of yourself that was wounded,
Right.
that part of you that still carries the pain of those early experiences.
It sounds like we need to tap into our emotions and really feel those hurts to heal them.
Exactly. The book offers guided imagery exercises
Right.
that can be incredibly powerful for accessing those deep-seated emotions and offering compassion and healing to that younger self.
It's almost like offering that inner child the love and validation they never received. But what about those people who contributed to our life traps?
Yeah.
How do we deal with those unresolved feelings?
That's where another powerful tool comes in letter writing.
Okay.
The book encourages you to write letters to the people who contributed to your life trap,
Right.
expressing those unsaid feelings and unmet needs.
Okay.
It's not about blaming or attacking them, but rather about processing those painful experiences
Yeah.
and gaining closure.
So it's a way to release those pent-up emotions and reclaim our power.
Exactly. And while these letters are sometimes never sent, the very act of writing them can be incredibly cathartic and healing.
That makes sense. We've got to process those emotions before we can move on.
Yeah. And once you've connected with your inner child and processed those painful experiences,
Yeah.
you can start to build a case against your life trap.
What does that look like?
It's about gathering evidence that challenges the validity of those negative beliefs.
Okay.
For example, if your life trap is defectiveness and you constantly feel not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
you might start to look for evidence that contradicts that belief.
Okay.
Maybe you've achieved great things in your life, or maybe people who love you see your strengths and value you deeply.
So it's about challenging those negative thoughts and beliefs with logic and evidence. It's
Right.
like we have to become our own defense attorney and advocate for our own worthiness.
Exactly.
And alongside that, it's about identifying and changing the ways you reinforce your life trap in your day-to-day life. This involves creating a plan for behavior change, replacing those self-destructive patterns with healthier, more fulfilling alternatives.
Yeah.
So if someone is constantly seeking approval and validation from others because of their dependence life trap, they might start by setting small, achievable goals that allow them to experience success and build their sense of self-efficacy.
Exactly. It's about taking small steps towards independence, gradually pushing their comfort zone,
Right.
and realizing that they are capable and strong enough to handle life's challenges on their own.
So it's a combination of changing our thinking and changing our behavior.
Right.
But are there any other strategies for breaking free from these life traps?
One of the most important things is to find healthy and supportive relationships.
Okay.
It's about surrounding yourself with people who see you, value you, and encourage your growth.
And that might be especially challenging if your life trap leads you to choose partners who reinforce those negative beliefs.
That's right. So it's crucial to become aware of those patterns.
Right.
Recognize red flags and make conscious choices to build relationships with people who support your healing and growth.
So it's about creating a foundation of love and security that allows you to thrive. It's
Exactly.
like building that secure base that allows us to venture out into the world with confidence.
Absolutely. And sometimes that might involve seeking support from a therapist or joining a support group.
Okay.
Having that external support system can be incredibly valuable for navigating these challenges, gaining new perspectives, and staying motivated on your journey.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that you don't have to do this alone.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but let's dive into some of these specific life traps in more detail.
Sure.
The book dedicates a whole chapter to each one, doesn't it?
Yes. It provides in-depth explorations of each life trap, including its origins, characteristics, coping mechanisms, and strategies for overcoming it.
Okay.
We can start with the abandonment life trap, which is characterized by a deep-seated fear of being abandoned or left alone.
So people with this life trap might experience intense anxiety and emotional distress at even the slightest hint of separation.
Exactly. They might cling to partners, overreact to minor disagreements, or constantly seek reassurance and validation.
Yeah.
It's a heartbreaking cycle that often stems from early experiences of loss or instability.
Like the loss of a parent through death, divorce, or even just inconsistent or emotionally unavailable parenting.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does the book approach healing from this life trap?
It's about recognizing those patterns of clinginess, neediness, and overdependence,
Okay.
and gradually building a stronger sense of self-reliance.
So it's about becoming your own source of comfort and security.
Exactly.
And a big part of that is learning to choose healthy and supportive partners who are capable of providing that secure base.
Absolutely. It's about breaking free from those destructive cycles and creating relationships that are built on trust, mutual respect, and genuine connection.
And the book provides some really practical strategies for recognizing red flags in potential partners, setting healthy boundaries, and communicating needs assertively.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming your power and creating relationships that nurture your growth rather than reinforce those old wounds.
Exactly. And that's the empowering message of reinventing your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding that you have the power
Hmm.
to change, to heal those old wounds and create a more fulfilling life.
It's like you're finally free to write a new story, one where love and connection are possible without that constant fear of being left behind.
That's the beautiful thing about this work, realizing you have the power to rewrite your story. Now, shifting gears a bit, the mistrust and abuse life trap presents its own set of challenges.
Okay.
It's characterized by a pervasive fear of being harmed, betrayed, or taken advantage of.
It's like you're always on guard waiting for the other shoe to drop. Can you imagine how exhausting that would be, always expecting the worst from people?
It is incredibly draining.
Yeah.
And it often leads to difficulty trusting others, and sometimes even manifests as controlling or suspicious behavior.
Right.
This hypervigilance often stems from experiencing some form of abuse or betrayal during childhood.
So this could include physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, or maybe even witnessing violence, or just a general lack of safety and security growing up.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that healing from this life trap requires a multifaceted approach. It's about processing those traumatic experiences, challenging those negative beliefs about yourself and others, and gradually learning to rebuild trust.
So it's about recognizing that not everyone is out to hurt you and that healthy, loving relationships are possible even after experiencing abuse.
Yes, and therapy can be incredibly helpful in navigating this particular life trap.
Okay.
It provides that safe space to explore those deep-seated fears, develop coping mechanisms, and practice setting healthy boundaries.
It's about reclaiming your power, recognizing your own worth, and choosing relationships that are based on mutual trust and respect.
Hmm.
This deep dive is really highlighting how interconnected our past experiences are with our present relationships.
Absolutely, and we can't talk about life traps and relationships without exploring the emotional deprivation life trap,
Right.
which can manifest in so many subtle ways.
This is that feeling of emptiness and loneliness, that nagging belief that your emotional needs will never truly be met.
Right, people struggling with this life trap often find themselves constantly seeking out attention and affection,
Yeah.
or feeling emotionally disconnected, even when surrounded by people. Some even withdraw from relationships altogether.
It's like they're always searching for that love and connection they never received as children. What would cause someone to develop this life trap?
This often stems from having emotionally distant, neglectful, or unresponsive caregivers. The book emphasizes the importance of recognizing these patterns, connecting with those unmet needs from childhood, and learning to nurture yourself emotionally.
So it's about learning to fill that void from within, developing self-compassion, and realizing you have the power to meet your own emotional needs.
It's a profound shift in perspective, recognizing your inherent worthiness and creating a life that is truly rich in genuine connection and emotional fulfillment.
It seems like the key takeaway here is that you're not doomed to repeat the past. You can heal those old wounds and create a new, more fulfilling reality for yourself. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's come back to the impact life traps have on our day-to-day lives. Can you remind me about some of the specific examples the book uses to illustrate these concepts?
Of course, remember Heather? She was practically a prisoner in her own home, crippled by anxiety and this overwhelming fear of the outside world
Right.
due to her vulnerability life trap.
Oh, yes. She was constantly worried about things like car accidents, natural disasters, even a bridge collapsing while she was driving over it.
Her world had shrunk down to this tiny safe bubble, and it all stemmed from a childhood where her parents were incredibly overprotective, treating her like she was fragile.
Okay.
They shielded her from any potential danger or discomfort.
So she never developed that sense of agency, that belief in her own ability to handle life's challenges.
Exactly. Without that opportunity to experience manageable risks and build resilience, she felt completely overwhelmed by the world.
It's incredible how those early experiences shape our perceptions of safety and danger. It's a powerful reminder of how important it is to foster a sense of autonomy and resilience in children.
I agree. Allowing them to take age-appropriate risks,
Huh?
make mistakes, and learn from their experiences is crucial for their development.
Yeah.
And speaking of development, Patrick's case really illustrates how the need for constant reassurance can manifest.
Okay.
He was completely stuck in a dependence life trap.
Right, Patrick. He was endlessly seeking validation from others, unable to make decisions or function independently. And I remember the book mentioned he spent years in psychoanalysis talking about his childhood, but not really making much progress.
Traditional talk therapy often focuses on understanding the past, but doesn't always equip people with the tools for actual behavior change.
That's where Reinventing Your Life takes a different approach. It doesn't just offer insight, it provides a practical roadmap for breaking free. What were some of the strategies they used with Patrick?
Well, they helped him recognize his pattern of seeking approval and relying on others for decision-making.
Right.
Then they guided him through exercises designed to challenge those beliefs and encourage him to take small steps towards independence.
So things like setting small, achievable goals, making decisions on his own, even if they were small decisions at first, and gradually pushing his comfort zone. What were the results? Did he see improvement?
He did. Yeah, eventually, he was able to end a destructive relationship, establish healthy boundaries, and start living a life that was more authentic and fulfilling.
It really is a testament to the power of understanding and actively challenging those ingrained patterns. We've talked about how life traps impact our sense of self and our independence, but they also show up in our relationships, don't they?
Yes.
Jed's constant pursuit of unavailable partners, Patrick's struggle to assert himself in his marriage, it's all connected.
Relationships often become a stage where our deepest wounds and unmet needs play out. We're drawn to situations that recreate familiar dynamics, even if they are painful.
The book calls this the irony of repetition. Can you explain a bit more about that?
It's that unconscious drive we have to replay those early experiences, almost as if we're trying to rewrite the ending to those painful childhood stories. We're hoping for a different outcome this time, but it rarely works that way.
And in fact, it usually just reinforces those negative beliefs and keeps us stuck in those self-defeating patterns.
That's the irony. But the good news is that Reinventing Your Life emphasizes that we have the power to break free.
Okay.
With awareness, commitment, and the right tools, we can heal those old wounds and create healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
It's encouraging to hear that we're not doomed to repeat those patterns forever. Are there any other stories from the book that highlight how these life traps play out in our relationships?
Definitely Carlton's story is a great example of someone struggling with the subjugation life trap.
Carlton, wasn't he the one who was completely dominated by his overbearing father?
Yes, he spent his whole life trying to please his father, never daring to express his own needs or desires. Carlton's childhood was marked by his father's constant criticism and attempts to control him, so Carlton learned to suppress his individuality and prioritize his father's happiness above his own.
It sounds like he was just going through the motions, never really feeling truly alive or free.
Exactly. And sadly, this pattern continued into adulthood. He joined his father's business despite having different dreams and remained trapped in a cycle of pleasing and appeasing.
It's heartbreaking that he felt like he couldn't be his true self. What was at the root of this pattern for Carlton?
It stemmed from a deep-seated belief that his needs were less important than others' needs. This belief developed as a way to survive in his childhood environment.
So how did he finally break free? It sounds like a challenging situation to overcome.
Well, through therapy, Carlton began to recognize his subjugation life trap and understand how it was impacting his life. He started exploring his own feelings, identifying his suppressed desires, and gradually began asserting himself more, even with his father.
So he started speaking up, setting boundaries, and expressing his own opinions. I imagine that wasn't easy.
It definitely wasn't. But with each step, he gained more confidence and a stronger sense of self. Eventually, he was even able to inspire his father to reevaluate his own behavior, which led to a healthier, more balanced relationship between them.
It's amazing how one person's transformation can create a ripple effect influencing positive change in others.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of our relationships and the power of personal growth to transform not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us.
Right.
And on the topic of powerful transformations, Madeline's story is a poignant example of the devastating impact of the mistrust and abuse life trap.
Madeline, she was the one who had a deep-seated mistrust of men stemming from childhood sexual abuse, right?
Yes, her early life was marked by a profound violation of trust and safety. She was betrayed by the very person who was supposed to protect her, leaving her feeling deeply wounded and insecure.
And that trauma continued to affect her adult relationships, leading to a pattern of avoidance, suspicion, and self-sabotage.
It's like she expected to be hurt or betrayed, so she unconsciously pushed people away or chose partners who would inevitably confirm her negative beliefs about men.
It's a tragic cycle that so many survivors of abuse experience. It makes you realize how crucial it is to address and heal from those early traumas. But how do you even begin to rebuild trust after such a profound betrayal?
It's a long and challenging process, but healing is definitely possible.
So therapy played a key role in Madeline's healing journey.
Absolutely. She was able to process her trauma in a safe and supportive environment, challenge her negative beliefs, and gradually start rebuilding trust.
It's amazing how resilient the human spirit can be, even in the face of such adversity. People can find the strength to heal and create a new reality for themselves. What were some of the key things Madeline learned in therapy?
She learned to recognize red flags in potential partners, set healthy boundaries, and most importantly, she began to believe that she was worthy of love and respect.
Mm.
Eventually, she created a loving and secure relationship with a partner who deserved her trust.
It's inspiring to see how even after experiencing such profound betrayal, it is possible to heal and find true intimacy and connection. We've talked a lot about the emotional and relational impact of life traps, but they can also affect our careers and even our sense of self-worth, can't they?
Absolutely. These patterns can permeate every aspect of our lives.
Mhm.
But as the book emphasizes, you are not defined by your past experiences.
So it's not about erasing the past, but rather about understanding how it has shaped us and then using that knowledge to create a different future.
By understanding our patterns and actively working to change them, we can create a life that is more fulfilling and authentic.
Ah,
So let's shift gears a bit and delve into some of the tools and techniques the book offers for breaking free.
sounds good. I'm particularly interested in learning more about the role of cognitive therapy in this process.
Cognitive therapy is a cornerstone of the book's approach. It's all about recognizing and challenging those automatic negative thoughts that keep us stuck in our self-defeating patterns.
So we often operate on autopilot, letting those negative thoughts dictate our feelings and behaviors without even realizing it.
Precisely, we're caught in these mental loops that reinforce our life traps.
Mhm.
But by bringing awareness to those thoughts, we can start to question their validity and replace them with more balanced and realistic ones.
The book actually provides specific exercises for challenging those thoughts, doesn't it?
It does, and it's fascinating how simply shifting our perspective can have such a profound impact on our emotions and behaviors.
Mm.
But it's not just about thinking differently.
Right.
It's also about changing our behaviors.
So taking concrete actions to break out of those self-defeating cycles, what would that look like in practice?
For example, if you're struggling with the abandonment life trap and find yourself clinging to partners, you might start by working on building your own sense of independence and self-reliance.
So that might involve taking up a new hobby, spending more time with friends, or pursuing goals you've been putting off.
Exactly. The key is to start small and gradually push your comfort zone, building your confidence with each step you take. You're essentially rewiring those old neural pathways by creating new experiences that challenge those limiting beliefs.
It's about proving to yourself that you are capable, worthy, and deserving of love and happiness.
And that's a powerful message, isn't it? It's about taking ownership of your life and realizing that you have the power to change. But cognitive techniques and behavior change aren't the only tools Reinventing Your Life offers. It also emphasizes the importance of connecting with your inner child.
Ah, yes. The wounded child within, it's about accessing and comforting that part of yourself that still carries the pain of those early experiences.
And those guided imagery exercises we mentioned earlier, they can be incredibly powerful for tapping into those deep-seated emotions and offering compassion and healing to that younger self.
It's like giving that inner child the love and validation they never received, allowing them to finally feel safe, seen, and understood.
It's a beautiful concept and incredibly effective for releasing those emotional blocks that keep us stuck. And speaking of release, we also talked about the power of letter writing
Yeah.
as a way to process those painful experiences, set boundaries, and reclaim your power.
It's about expressing those unsaid feelings and unmet needs, often to the very people who contributed to the life trap.
Right, and even though those letters are sometimes never sent, the very act of writing them can be incredibly cathartic.
Yeah.
It allows you to acknowledge the impact those experiences had on. You gain a sense of closure and move forward with more clarity and peace.
So we've talked about identifying life traps, challenging negative thoughts, changing behavior patterns, connecting with our inner child, and writing letters. Are there any other key strategies?
Well, the book emphasizes the importance of finding healthy and supportive relationships.
That's about surrounding yourself with people who see you, value you, and encourage your growth.
Exactly. And this can be challenging if you're operating from a life trap that leads you to choose partners who reinforce those negative beliefs.
Right.
It's important to become aware of your patterns, recognize red flags, and make conscious choices to build relationships with people who support your healing and growth.
It's about creating that foundation of love and security that allows you to thrive. And sometimes that might involve seeking support from a therapist or joining a support group.
Hmm.
Having that external support system can be incredibly valuable. It's a reminder that you don't have to go through this alone.
That's so important to remember. We're not meant to do this work in isolation. Now, I know we've already touched on some specific life traps, but would you
Right.
like to delve into them in a bit more detail?
Absolutely. I think our listener would appreciate a deeper understanding of each life trap and how it might be playing out in their own life. We'll start with the abandonment life trap in the next part. So let's dive back into these life traps and explore them in a little more detail.
Okay.
We were about to discuss the abandonment life trap.
Right.
Can you remind us what that one is all about?
So people with this life trap, they live with this deep-seated fear of being abandoned or left alone. And even the slightest hint of separation can trigger intense anxiety and emotional distress.
It's like their world revolves around maintaining those close connections, even if those connections are unhealthy or unfulfilling.
Yeah.
They might cling to partners or overreact to small disagreements
Right.
or constantly seek reassurance.
Mm.
It sounds exhausting.
It can be.
And as we touched on earlier, this pattern often originates from those early experiences of loss or instability.
Yeah.
So the loss of a parent through death or divorce,
Right.
or even just having emotionally unavailable parents, can set the stage for this life trap.
Absolutely.
What are some strategies the book suggests for healing from this?
Well, it starts with recognizing those patterns of clinginess and overdependence
Okay.
and gradually working towards a stronger sense of self-reliance.
So it's about becoming your own source of comfort and strength,
Exactly.
which makes sense because if you don't feel secure within yourself, you're always going to be looking for it from others.
Mhm.
But that can lead to unhealthy relationships, right?
Absolutely. That's why the book also stresses the importance of learning to choose healthy and supportive partners,
Okay.
the kind who can provide a secure base without you feeling like you have to cling to them.
It's about finding that balance between connection and autonomy
Right.
and reinventing your life. Provide some helpful tools for doing that right.
It does. There are exercises for recognizing red flags in potential partners, strategies for setting healthy boundaries, and tips for communicating your needs in a clear and assertive way.
So instead of falling into those old patterns of people-pleasing or sacrificing your needs to avoid conflict,
Yeah.
you're learning to show up as your authentic self
Mm-hmm.
and build relationships based on mutual respect and trust.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming your power and creating relationships that truly nurture your growth.
Now let's move on to the mistrust and abuse life trap.
Okay.
This one can be particularly difficult to overcome.
Yeah, you can.
This is the life trap where people constantly fear being harmed, betrayed, or taken advantage of. They have a hard time trusting others and might even exhibit controlling or suspicious behavior.
Hmm.
It's like they're always on guard waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
What kind of experiences would lead someone to develop this life trap?
This life trap often develops as a result of actual abuse or betrayal in childhood.
So we're talking about physical, emotional, or sexual abuse.
Yes, any of those.
Okay.
But even witnessing violence or growing up in an environment where they didn't feel safe or secure can have a similar impact.
Right.
The world feels like a dangerous place, and they learn to protect themselves by not trusting anyone.
That makes sense, but it also makes it very difficult to form healthy relationships.
Yeah.
How do you break out of that cycle of mistrust?
It's a gradual process.
Ah,
The book emphasizes the importance of processing those traumatic experiences in a safe and supportive environment. Therapy is often crucial for this.
right.
And then gently challenging those ingrained negative beliefs about yourself and others.
So starting to recognize that not everyone is out to hurt you, and that it is possible to build relationships based on trust and mutual respect.
Exactly. And learning to identify red flags and set healthy boundaries is also essential.
Okay.
It's about reclaiming your power and choosing relationships that are truly safe and supportive.
Now, we've talked a lot about life traps that affect our relationships with others,
Yeah,
but there are also those that impact our relationship with ourselves.
right.
The emotional deprivation life trap is a prime example of that.
Yeah, it is.
This is the one where people feel a deep sense of emptiness and loneliness.
Right.
They have this persistent belief that their emotional needs will never be met.
They often try to fill that void by constantly seeking attention and affection from others.
Right.
They might crave external validation, feel emotionally disconnected, even in close relationships,
Yeah.
or withdraw from connection altogether.
It's like they're always searching for something outside of themselves to make them feel whole.
But true emotional fulfillment can only come from within. And that's where the book's approach is so powerful. Instead of encouraging you to keep seeking that love and validation from others, it guides you to connect with those unmet needs from childhood and learn to nurture yourself emotionally.
So it's about filling that void from the inside out.
Exactly.
Oh, instead of looking to others to make you feel happy and loved, you're learning to become your own source of love and acceptance. What a powerful concept.
It is.
And it's a key step in breaking free from the emotional deprivation life trap.
Absolutely.
Wow. This deep dive has been quite a journey. We've explored these 11 life traps,
Yes.
from their roots in childhood to their impact on our lives and relationships. We've learned about the cycle of surrender, escape, and counterattack, and discovered powerful tools like cognitive therapy, inner child work, and letter writing that can help us break free from those self-defeating patterns.
It's been a powerful reminder that healing is possible, that change is within reach, and that you are not defined by your past experiences. You have the power to create a more fulfilling and authentic life.
And if you're feeling inspired to start rewriting your own story, I highly recommend picking up a copy of Reinventing Your Life. It's a book filled with practical tools and techniques that can guide you on this journey of self-discovery and transformation.
So go out there, embrace the power you have within, and start creating the life you truly deserve.
And until next time, keep diving deep.